Hi, and welcome to the Dingers Podcast, episode 62. This is your host, Mitch. I'm here with my boy, Jake, and our guest, Cody. How are you guys tonight?
Doing well. Happy to have Cody join us tonight. Excited to talk some Cubs baseball with you, man.
Yeah, guys, thank you for having me on. Been a fan for a while from afar, following you guys. I just tune into the stream sometimes and on Twitter. And yeah, thanks for asking me. I'm glad someone that does a Cubs podcast asked me to come on because I feel like there's a lot of people on Cubs Twitter that might not be the biggest fan of me, but I'm glad you guys are. So,
We're big
again.
fans. Cody is one of the hosts of CodyOnTap podcast and the Sky is Falling podcast, all part of the OnTap Sports Network. So go check them out. I listen to a lot of Cubs on Tap. Just kind of, it's good to listen to other Cubs podcasts, just to bounce ideas, hear what the other people are saying. So I checked in a lot throughout this year and love listening to you guys. So yeah, go check out, highly recommend Cubs on Tap. And they do it daily, which I don't know how you guys do it daily. That's a grind.
Me and my guy Ron Luce, man, we grind, man. Like I don't know what you guys like, how invested you guys are into this podcast, like in terms of like long-term success. But like we'll sit after we're done recording, we'll be like, dude, one day we're going to be like in an office doing this shit or something, you know? So like we got a definite passion. And it helps that we got a lot of guys surrounded us that feel the same way too. So, yeah, we do like post-game recaps in season. And then this off season, we've tried to at least do one every other week. We had DJ Hers on the show a couple weeks ago, which he was a really cool guy. I saw he was on you guys' show too. So That's cool.
He's great to talk to.
Yeah. And we've had a few other minor league guys too in the past. So we're hoping to increase that as the off season goes along. It's just, admittedly, after doing a show every single day in the summer, you get to the off season, you're like, man, I need a break. So it's been kind of tough to even do them every other week. So again, yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in and stuff. And if you haven't tuned in, feel free to tune in. Start in season, because I guess then you'll at least be able to ride the roller coaster with us. But you know how baseball is, man. It's always a roller coaster.
Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Well, this podcast is presented to you by Shy City Sports. If you're interested in all things Chicago sports, this is your place. Go check out all the blogs, the forums, and all the other podcasts. We got the Keep It 100, the Good Guys Talk Back, and the Big Red Bus with the Bulls podcast. The Bulls are good this year, so go check out that podcast. We're also sponsored by Toppling Goliath. So Toppling Goliath beer. They're in Binny's now, so go check out Binny's and get some Toppling Goliath beer. But yeah, Cody, man, this free agent market has gotten crazy the last few days.
Yeah.
And we were just talking before, like if we would have done this podcast yesterday, I bet our tone and what we talked about would have been a little bit different. But before we talk about the Cubs, I want to hear your just take on the free agent market and kind of the way it's kind of taken off this last week.
Yeah. So obviously it's awesome to see that like players are signing before like March, right? Obviously the CBA deadline or whatever, like for the new one, obviously has a big part in that. So in a sense, even though it's kind of for like shitty reasons, I'm just glad to see players committing to teams and saying, yeah, we're going to go here. So you at least have an idea of what you're going to see next season if we have a season, which we just don't know right now, which is just so wild to me and makes me so mad and upset. But yeah, other than that though, like I mean, you guys have to be with me on this. Like the last 3-4 years, it's just been like the MLB offseason has just been unbearable. Like,
yeah,
I tell people all the time, like when I was in college and John Lester signed with the Cubs, like I was in my bed refreshing Twitter, like in the winter of like 2014 or whatever it was. And just like, because I knew John Lester was in, like the Cubs were in on him and it was between him and the Red Sox, and like traction was moving. And at that time, MLB, like the winter meetings, like everything was happening there, and like everything, like it was just like kind of like what we've seen the last couple of days, just deals firing off. And you were like, if you didn't have your notifications turned on for Passan or Rosenthal or Heyman or even Boob Nightingale, like what are you doing? So that's kind of like what I've gotten that feeling like back whenever I was in college and remembering when Lester signed with the Cubs and just like kind of bringing back like this is why the MLB free agency is awesome. And a lot of people don't realize that because they're either casual or maybe they just haven't been into baseball as long, I guess, for like younger generations. But I would say like what we've seen the last couple of days, it's good for like the game in terms of like our younger generations, just, if they're interested in certain players. Obviously, Javi Baez going to the Tigers today. He's a very well-known popular player. I'm sure a lot of kids around the league are thinking about buying a Detroit Tigers jersey now. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, as far as that goes, I mean, that's where I'm at on it. It's awesome. It's good to see. Unfortunately, it's just for stupid reasons. But it is what it is.
Yeah, what I liked is that all the teams that have been spending so far are teams that did not make the playoffs this year. They're the ones that are spending all the bucks. Like we got the Rangers, we have the Tigers, Seattle going out and spending. We have Blue Jays. They're the teams that are out there spending the money. And then
the Rays like gave a 10-year contract or whatever it was.
Yeah. So it's crazy to see that kind of money floating around with teams that didn't make the playoffs. And then we see the tweet that come out yesterday about the expanded playoffs doing like, what was it, 14, 16? I don't know, everybody.
Too many teams.
It's like, okay, that's a horrible idea. But it gives those teams that didn't make the playoffs this year, it's showing that there is a hunger out there, especially after watching the Braves make the playoffs and going kind of a run the second half, that all you got to do is just get in, and then you have a chance to win it all. And so that's where it kind of shows the Blue Jays, those teams that are on the fringe, to go for it, which makes us Cubs fans even like, hey, we're 1 or 2 away. Like, we're not asking you to go and get everybody, but 1 or 2. So before all this happened, who was your guys that you wanted maybe the Cubs to pursue and sign?
I mean, after the trade deadline and everything's all me and Ron and the guys who helped do the podcast for Cubs on Tap, we would seemingly just always bring ourselves into the talking about like, who should the Cubs sign? Because we would talk about the game for about 5 minutes and be like, yeah, it sucked, but hey, here's what we have to look forward to.
Yeah, it seemed like the whole second half we just talked about the offseason.
Yeah, we just kept reiterating the entire thing. So we actually stopped doing shows every single day, especially if like it was a blowout loss or whatever, because it was like, all right, what are we even going to talk about? But I guess after the deadline, I was like really high in on like Corey Seager. And me and Ron definitely were in on Marcus Stroman, like even before the season. And then obviously Nick Castellanos, we like love Nick Castellanos. And I think those are the 3 main ones outside of, former Cubs that we still dream about maybe coming back. So obviously you can't get Seager now because he went to the Rangers. And, I don't pay attention to Seager as much as other guys. I know can be a little injury prone at times, but I mean, he's still young, still maybe hasn't hit his prime yet. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad deal. It's always crazy when you see these 10-year deals for guys who are like already veterans. Like it makes sense for like Wander Franco, who's like 21 years old, and he's going to make all of his money at the back end of that when he's supposed to be hitting his prime, right? Honestly, maybe it's just PTSD from Jason Hayward for me. Yeah. Like maybe it's just that. I don't know. And that's kind of why I'm like I've been very loud on Twitter about how the only way that I would like the Cubs to bring Javi Baez back was if it was like on a short-term deal, because I just don't think what he does is going to age well. And I got into a little bicker with some Mets fan who I don't know and doesn't follow me the other day after the Simeon signing went down. And I said, after he getting 7 years, $175 million, I was like, there's no way Javi Baez is getting more than that. And some Mets fan came in at me and it was like, he's younger and he's better, and that's why he's going to get more. And it's like, dude, you've watched the guy play for 2 months. I've watched him play for 6-7 years. I watched him
games.
play for 6 to 7 years. This guy is not getting more than Marcus Semien. And I was a little petty. Went back to his old tweets in the thread and liked him today. Didn't say anything. I just liked his tweets, so he knew that I went back and laughed at him a little bit. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Seager was a guy, but I'm not too upset that the Cubs didn't do that contract. There's still some guys out there, so we'll see. I have so many thoughts on like what the Cubs should do and what I would like them to do. Like I would like for them to go give Carlos Correa whatever they want, but I'm also like, do they need to do that? I don't think they need to, considering they do have a lot of shortstop talent coming up. It's just like, if you go get Correa, then I guess it kind of speeds the rebuild up. And if you don't get him, then we have to wait a little bit longer. I mean, it just depends on where you're at on that. And I understand like people want to win now. We're a big market team. We got to, we should, like, after what the Ricketts have done to us in terms of not spending the last 3 years, they should go spend. Like I'm with you on that, but I'm also like why block all these young players that we just traded for? Like, what would be the point? And I know they're not all going to cash in, but I mean, some of them are. So it's like, I don't know. So I keep going back and forth with it. And don't get me wrong, though, I'd be real happy if the Cubs found a way and just signed Carlos Correa tomorrow or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm kind of been when it's Cubs Twitter, I feel like I'm on the opposite side of what Cubs Twitter is right now. Cubs Twitter is like, we need to sign everybody. We need to at least get some people. Like, we need to sign now. And I've looked at this free agent class, and I know next free agent class is garbage. But when I've looked at this free agent class, even for the last 3 or 4 months, there hasn't been a guy where I look at them and it's like, we have to get him. We have to make this deal. And even when it comes to pitchers, like I would have liked John Gray. I think that was an interesting type of signing that we could have done. That would have been actually smart and intelligent, like Jed likes to use. Signing. We didn't get him. But then when we look at these shortstops, I don't think that we have to get a shortstop. I really think that we're going to end up with like a Freddie Galvis. And you know what? I think he's going to be a serviceable shortstop. And I threw it out to Jake today that I have this theory that I was like kind of working through last night, that I think if we add 15 WAR to our team in this offseason, that we're going to make the playoffs. If we could add 15 WAR somehow through different moves, and it doesn't have to be one guy, it can be multiple moves. So we started making a list of like possible names that we could add up to get to 15 WAR. Jake, who are some of the guys that you threw out there? Which one of them he threw on, and like 15 minutes later, Clint Frazier we picked up.
Yeah, I saw Jake's tweet today. I was like, oh well, great timing, nice.
Yeah, I'll quickly touch on Clint Frazier here. So when the Yankees non-tendered him, he was somebody that kind of piqued my interest. He always kind of has, because he always just felt like he was misunderstood in New York and wasn't really given the opportunity that he needed. Kind of like Michael Hermosillo didn't get the opportunity in Chicago, but Frazier has a better prospect pedigree. I mean, he's a first-round pick, I believe. I should have double-checked that, but I know
he was. Yes. I think he was like 4 behind Bryant.
Okay.
Yeah, he went 5th.
Okay. So, I mean, that's a good start. And then coming into the 2017 season, he was the number 1 prospect in the Yankees organization after they got him in the Andrew Miller trade. And the guy was a stud. I mean, Cashman was super high on him. Thought he was going to be, locking down center field or some outfield spot for them for years. But then they just didn't trust the guy to give him everyday playing time. I think a 1-year deal is fine. I think he's a guy that you should give a prove it deal to. But I hope if he does play well, we're not hesitant to try to lock him down, either to an extension later in the season or a multi-year deal in the offseason. But I think that's a big if. He definitely has a strikeout problem. I mean, his K rate in his career has been in the upper 20s. It's not unsustainable, but you'd like to see that drop down, and maybe it does when he gets more frequent playing time. Positive thing is that his walk rate, his career walk rate, I believe is just over 10% in the MLB. I can't remember if I calculated that for the MLB or minor league. His minor league numbers are pretty damn good. but of course, we need to see that translate to the bigs. I mean, 27 years old right now, with the prospect pedigree that he has, the National League likely getting the DH. I think it's the right signing. I do think that it kind of like I would have liked to see them hold on to Hermosillo, and I don't really understand who's the guy that we just got from the Indians.
Ramirez.
Yeah, Harold Ramirez. He kind of replaces Hermosillo, but he's more of a known quantity than Hermosillo is. So I didn't really like that give and take. But I am really high on Frazier. And yeah, Mitch is right. I put him on the list of this WAR calculation. He's projected for 0.3 WAR by Steamer, but I don't remember what his games. Actually, I've got his page up here. His games played prediction from Steamer is 76. So obviously want to see more than that. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good pickup. I read a great article today. I tweeted this too. If you're listening, I quote tweeted this. Matt Spiegel is the one who initially tweeted it out, but it goes into Frazier's issues with the New York front office and them, kind of not letting players express themselves, and then the New York media being very self-righteous. And Frazier kind of challenged both of those entities, and I'm here for that. I think my tweet today was nobody can replace Javi Baez's electricity, but it kind of seems like Frazier might do his best, and I think he's going to win over a lot of Cubs fans if he can do it right.
Yeah, I saw your tweet, and I hadn't had a chance to go read it yet, but I mean, if you can, I feel like, Javi Baez was a guy that, he became so beloved and popular because of just like his mannerisms, he was the most gifable player on the Cubs for so many years, and that's one of the reasons why he became so popular. That doesn't necessarily transition to value though. So
right.
if you can bring that, if he could bring that, but with a complete different game to the Cubs, that's a win right away. Right. So
right.
I'm really interested in what the Cubs are going to do with the outfield, because they just have a lot of guys, and they're
it's kind of a log jam right now.
Right. And obviously they're not going to
every day playing time too, but I don't want to see him in center field. So that's why I think the DH is going to be really important. So I mean, maybe Frazier, maybe they kind of platoon, but I also want to see Happ still get his chances against left-handed pitchers to see if he can do it. I think he deserves that opportunity. So you're right, it's going to be tough.
And besides Hayward and Ortega, they're all right-handed. The guys that they're all have this kind of the same makeup. The other guys like Ramirez, throwing him in there, it's kind of the same bunch of guys that do a lot of the same things. And so, I mean, I want to see Frazier get more playing time in right field over Hayward.
For sure.
I want to see that, but Hayward's going to get bats with right-handers on the mound, so it's
right. Plus the contract, the Cubs are going to. That's one of the biggest things that annoy me with the Cubs is they're still trying to justify this Jason Hayward contract, bro. Any chance they get to market him, when they put out the Wrigleyville jerseys, it was Rizzo, Baez, Bryant, Jock Peterson, and Hayward, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? And it's just And I'm not even a Jason Hayward hater or slanderer person. I love Jason Hayward. He's a great person and everything. He just never lived up to this contract. He never has, never will. I was just hoping that he could give us a nice 2 or 3 WAR every year for the rest of his time. And last year was his worst season as a pro. And it's just dude, that's not great. And so I am hoping that, he can get back to 2020 level. He was the Cubs' best hitter in 2020, believe it or not. So if he can get back to that level, or even 2019, where he's just hit 250, got on base at 320, it's just him being on the roster really does kind of, even still now, kind of puts them in a spot where what do we do? Because not even how are you going to have that kind of
having him on there, you can't justify having him on the bench all the time.
right?
because of the money
Like
that you're paying him. So fans are going to say,
Right.
like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you play him,
Right.
fans are going to be pissed. If you don't play him, fans are going to be like, we're paying this guy
Yeah.
$22 million to sit on the bench. Like,
Right.
yeah, but what's
Death
the
taxes,
alternative?
ground ball to second base.
Well,
Like,
if I
like,
have to pay, like,
yeah.
$70 to go watch him play, I don't want to pay $70 to go watch him play either.
Right.
I'd rather him be
Same.
on the bench.
Same. So like it's just so like that's just one whole thing, man. And Jake, you mentioned Ian Happ, and like I keep all season I was going back and forth with Ian Happ, and obviously he struggled like the entire year until like the end. And so it's like, how much of his hot streak at the end can you really take into it? Like I don't even know. Like I'm glad that he did to show that he still has some value, but he was playing so bad before that hot streak, and it's just like what do we do? He kind of saved himself because, like, I mean, the Cubs could non-tender him, but I think because of their roster at the moment, I think they will tender him a contract.
They did.
And
They did. Yeah.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if they had or hadn't yet. So, you know, I mean, he is a popular player, so it makes sense that they did that. So I am hoping, you know, I feel like he's been given so many chances, and you know, now it's like, oh, he was playing in center field, but he hit so much better when he was playing corner outfield, mainly left field, and like his numbers were better then. So maybe he just wasn't comfortable in center field. And I mean, no one ever really liked him in center field. So like maybe that's a thing. Like, I don't know. I just feel like he's been given so many chances that it's just like I'm at the point where, like, if we did non-tender him, I wouldn't have been upset about it. I would have been a little sad because it's like I expected more from him, and he's a good dude.
I'd have been upset because we could have traded him. I do think that you could have traded him with his value at the end of that would have upset me, and just in that regard. But then, of course, like,
that makes sense.
I know I make jokes about Ian Happ being my internet friend because he's liked a few of my tweets. But I do think, I mean, like I'm a big fan of the compound. Like I do like what they're doing. And I just think that movement of like players being more open and communicating with the fans in that way is great. And I think that for that reason alone, like I want to see him pull it together. So he's a
right. It's not like I'm not rooting for him. I want.
But you're right. He has gotten like ridiculous. He has gotten every opportunity. But we have to remember too. I mean, he came up in 2017, so it's only been 3 full seasons, and he was injured for I don't remember how long.
Injured
he was
for
out
some
this year.
I mean, and then he was down in the minors for some of it.
Yeah,
like
he was in the minors for most of 2019 when he shouldn't have, because the Cubs were like, "Oh, Albert Almora is going to finally do it," and then he didn't. He's another guy who got way too many opportunities.
He's available.
Yeah, he's a.
It would be so Cubs if they went and just got Albert Almora.
Like, somebody tweeted
reunion, baby. Let's reel in the cash.
Somebody tweeted, "I'm hearing a reunion with a former Cubs player," and they didn't say who, and I can't remember which account it was, but I was like, as I'm thinking about it, I was like, wait, there's so many former Cubs players. Like Almora is available, and I was listening to another podcast today. Rich Hill is available.
Yep, Rich Hill,
which actually kind of makes sense for rotation depth, but. We don't have to go
42-year-old Rich Hill, baby. Let's flip him at the deadline. yeah, that curve was something. I remember watching that one as a kid, and when I felt like Rich Hill was like he was in and out of the league. Like whenever he came back with the Dodgers, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, where has this guy been for like the last decade? And now he's been consistently getting 30 starts a year since then. I'm like, well, literally, what happened to him? So yeah,
wish I could tell you.
The other big news today was the Cubs signing of Yan Gomes. I like this pickup, but it kind of had Cubs Twitter going 1,000 different directions because, I mean, what is it telling us as Cubs fans? And then Wilson doing what he likes to do of putting out these cryptic tweets right after, and you're like, all right, what's going on? I mean, I like the signing. If it is just like Yan Gomes is a backup catcher to take some stress off of Contreras, who basically caught the first half of the season every game. Like, I like it. He has some pop in his bat. He's a veteran, Silver Slugger, and I think it was 2017. Been in the World Series, a veteran guy that can eat up innings behind the plate. I like the signing. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you basically summed it up for me, man. Like, it's, you know, I thought it was a decent backup catcher, and the Cubs clearly didn't. Like, they traded Victor Caratini with Yu Darvish and then never brought in they did bring in backup catchers, but like they obviously couldn't stay healthy. And and then like, just, I mean, Robinson Chirinos, I was like, I wouldn't have been mad if they brought him back. He's just old as shit now. Like, I mean,
like
hell,
38.
when they won in 16, they had 3 catchers. Like, if they want to bring him back too, just to add extra depth too, because I didn't think he was a bad hitter. And but you know what, that is what it is. But you know, I think that's a good move as long as they're not planning to trade Contreras. And if they did trade Contreras, if they ain't getting like immediate like talent to like help win now or like help the team this year, like I think that's full on like you every justification for every fan to like just be emphatically upset and mad while not spending. Like, and again, I'm with everyone when it comes to the whole like we haven't spent. I'm with you. Like I'm there. I just feel like we just do it too much. Like how do you go this long with being pissed? Like I can't do it. So I told Ron like 3 or 4 weeks ago that I had started writing an article after the deadline, like literally like the day or two after, and it was just this slanderous piece about Tom Ricketts. And I think I was like 1,500 words in, like, and I was still going. And then I got to the point where I was so tired of seeing fans continuously complain about Tom Ricketts and Jed Hoyer and everything. And this is like in the like almost the end of August, like so we had almost been a month out of the trade deadline. And I was like, I'm already tired of reading these people bitch. So how can I sit here and type all this out and then bitch at people about bitching when I'm sitting here bitching? So it's like I just trashed it and was like, everyone knows what we're talking about. But
it was I'm sure it was a cathartic process though.
For sure. I went through like I was diving deep into like the Cubs signings over the last like 10 years and like the most money they've given to other like certain players and all this stuff, like and going through every signing they did from the year 2015 forward and all this stuff. Like I don't even know how I found some of the information I found because I learned some things along the way.
I'm sure,
and you know, but you know, anyway, we're talking about Jan Gomes and everything, and so it's just like the point is just like as long as Contreras is still your catcher going into next season, it's like all right. And I've been on, you know, a lot of people going into in the last off season was like, you know, we got to extend Bryant Baez and all these guys and Rizzo and everything. And I was like, you know, what about Contreras? Like, you know, maybe this is because I'm proudly blocked by Yadier Molina on Instagram, but like, I feel like Wilson Contreras, if he could just find a way to just like get the longevity, you could find a way by the end of his career to justify him being better than Yadier Molina. Because I think Yadier Molina is the most overrated baseball player of my entire life.
I will say, I know
this is biased, but also facts.
This is a Cubs podcast, but I gotta say, for everybody out there that is in the camp of Yadi is not a Hall of Famer, go watch the Foolish Baseball video about that argument. I was like firmly in that camp too, and I watched the video, and Foolish is great. I mean, I watched. I was like, all right, that the argument makes sense, and it's totally just a Cubs bias and like, you know, hatred for all things Cardinal. Like if Yadi played for the Cubs, you know, we'd be kissing his feet, man. Of course. So I get it. I totally get it. But regarding the Jan Gomes, the Jan Gomes sign, just to bring it back to that real quick. The way that Cubs Twitter just blew everything out of proportion today was so infuriating and like so typical of Cubs Twitter. Like if the Cubs trade Wilson, we're gonna get something good. They're not gonna do it. Like Cody, I think you said we need to get a known quantity. We need to get someone in the major leagues. It should be a pitcher. It should be a major league pitcher who we know because we know that that's a need. We could probably get decent prospects. The best would be to get a major league pitcher and then like a couple flyers of prospects. If we could pull that off, fine. Like I'm never going to be jaded as a Cubs fan, but I'm definitely not happy with where things are right now. But I still think that Jed deserves the benefit of the doubt right now. Like
for sure. Like I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I feel like I think we're all allowed to have like mutual like feelings on both sides. And there's a lot of people on Cubs Twitter that are just like, fuck Tom Ricketson, fuck Jed Hoyer. There were people who were like spray painting fuck Jed Hoyer in Wrigleyville after the trade deadline, dude. And it's like, he got great returns for some
like
of those
look
guys.
at it now, especially after Arizona Fall League. Like, look at these guys that we've got. I mean, somebody tweeted today. That's how I knew that Javi only played 47 games. Like somebody verified on Twitter. I don't know who it was. Just tweeted, I can't believe the Mets traded Pete Crow Armstrong for 47 games of Javi Baez. And I was like, wait, that's, I mean, I do want to finish my thought on Jan really quick.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep swerving everything.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's like this is fiery. Like, it's got me going. So I'm about it. But I think that it is a perfect complementary move. It's exactly what you want to see, as is the Frazier deal. So I'm just like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? I'm not saying we have to go get Bryant back. I'm not saying at this point, like, I'd almost rather not get Rizzo back, because I feel like it's easy to put somebody else at first base. Like, maybe Clint Frazier can play first base. Kyle Schwarber figured it out, like, who knows? Yeah. So I'm not saying we have to go after one of the free agent bets. We're not going to spend $350 million plus on Correa. It's not going to happen. And I will say too, when I saw the Seager deal, I was kind of like, it made sense to me, but I was like, I'm glad the Cubs didn't pay that. Like, that
was my exact thoughts. I was like, glad that.
I was like, I would have liked to have him. And if they would have given him that contract, I probably would have been happy about it. But I'm also like, I'm okay that we didn't. So
it's for me at this point, it feels weird because I haven't really been that high on him, but it's got to be Stroman. Like, we've got to get Stroman now. If these two moves today are to be seen as good moves, we have to land a piece like Marcus Stroman. He's, as far as I know, I think he's the only. He's definitely the top pitcher. That's the best pitcher still out there, and I think it just falls off drastically after that.
Yep.
Yeah, after that,
Rodon
is probably the next one that I would
like. An interesting flyer. We talked. Mitch and I were talking about. We talked about Kikuchi. I sent you his baseball savant numbers, and they are not. It's a lot of blue on that page.
Yeah,
blue is bad for those of you that don't know. I think Matt Boyd being non-tendered is interesting. Like, that's not a big splash, but his expected ERA over the last 5 seasons has been under 4 for all of them but 1. And I believe in the pitching lab. Like, give us all the arms. Like, I will try anything, right? But yeah, there's got to be a big signing. Otherwise, it's going to be another boring offseason. And Cody, you kind of mentioned it too. Like, after the trade deadline, we were all waiting anxiously for the offseason. Like, that's all we could think about. And so now to see the damn Rangers, like, I didn't realize they had the money that they do, but to go after
Nolan Ryan, man, he sold some cattle down there, and
I don't even know a lot of players on their team outside of Adolis Garcia. I think that's what his name is.
They don't have anybody, but good for them for shoring up the I mean, like, Nick Solak, Willie Calhoun, and Nate Lowe are like the other 3 guys.
Is John Gray now their number 1 starter?
And Dane Dunning. I forgot that Dane Dunning is there too.
I don't know who else they have. I don't know what other starters they have. Glenn Otto, I think. It's not. So I don't know. But it's frustrating that we waited all, after the weekend after the trade deadline. I could not function. We talked about it the following Monday on the pod, Mitch. Like, I couldn't get anything done. And then it's like, okay, well, I got into the mood where it's like, okay, well, let's see what we do this offseason. Maybe, we've got money. Like, they're saying we're going to spend. They're saying it's not a rebuild. And now here we are on the sidelines. Like, what the hell is going on?
Right. And the Wade Miley deal is passed.
Yep.
Which I'm happy with, for the record.
Which I am too.
Yeah. But it's
Give me a pitcher with a 6B
complimentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Mitch.
Well, I brought up that today when I saw the whole thing going down with Contreras and Jan Gomes, and I was like, dude, I think that Contreras is going to be gone, or Jake said something like, this better not lead to Contreras being gone, or else I'm going to be super upset. And I was like, well, you won't like my theory. And so like, my theory is that Jed really wants to establish himself and have his team. And so when you look at who's left from Theo's guys, it's Hendricks and it's Contreras, really. The rest of them in Hayward, the rest of them, he can kind of put his stamp that like, yeah, I was in on getting them to come here. I was in on getting Madrigal. I was in on drafting Horner. I was in on all those things. So he can kind of claim a little bit of credit, but the Hendricks and the Contreras, that's still a little bit like Theo's thing. And so I really think he wants to kind of wipe the slate, and you're going to see, I bet you those two at the trade deadline, I think they're going to wait. If anything, I don't think they're going to do anything right now, but I think at the trade deadline, they're going to try to flip them. If they're out of contention, they're going to try to flip them. They're going to try to get something big for those guys. And you know what? I kind of not going to feel super bad if they do. I love Contreras and I love Hendricks. And it's kind of like, I think I've kind of like worn off of all like the my heartstrings have kind of gotten ripped apart this last year, where now it's like we've went through it with a Hendricks jersey. But we've went through it.
Jake's gonna hang it behind us.
Jersey, and I bought it the night of the World Series.
Oh, victory. Nice.
So I would be heartbroken, man. I love Hendricks.
But we've experienced it already. And so now it's like, okay, it's not bad. As long as we, like you said, we get what I think Jed will get for them guys at the trade deadline. But I think really Jed wants to establish himself, and he wants to make sure that this next run that we're on, that he gets his credit. And so I don't know.
I think
I could see
theory.
that. Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's a bad theory. I just think that Contreras, like Freddie Freeman,
he was a Hendry. He was a Hendry.
He was.
Hendry
right.
Too, for what it's worth.
Right. But I'm just thinking about Contreras. Like when you look at teams that have had sustained success for a long time, they've always had like a catcher that's been there for like a long time. And I mentioned Freddie Freeman, but I know he's a first baseman, but he's the face of the franchise. I always just felt like Contreras could be that, because I mean, this past season, we heard about like the locker room stuff where he was pissed off because he wants to win and he saw people not giving a shit. I mean, people always talked about how they thought Rizzo was like the leader and the captain and all that. I mean, I'd still put a C on his chest forever, but you know what I mean? Like maybe they don't want to bring Rizzo back because maybe he wasn't the leader that he was perceived to be. I mean, we don't see everything in-house. Right. Contreras straight up comes out and tells you how it is. Like, and that's something that I respect. And like catchers are they're built different, man. Like they're about the grittiest athletes in sports. He not only is he shown that he wants to win with the Cubs on social media, but like you see it when he's on the field. He's one of the most passionate players out there. Like everyone hates him if he's not on your team. You know why I hate Yadier Molina? Because he's exactly like that. Exactly like that. And that's why I was going into that whole thing about Molina and Contreras earlier, about how like Contreras is a guy that we should extend and he should be a Cub for life. Like go like take like give us the rest of his best years with the Cubs, and like then we can like once that contract's up, we can just give him like these 1 or 2 year deals until he finally decides to retire, and then we can like I just want Contreras to get the Yachty treatment from Cubs fans. Like that's what I want. I want it so bad, and I know that's thinking way far ahead, and like I'm thinking about going to that game. His last game as a Cub. Like I think about that shit all the time because I just think he's so much better than Yadier Molina. I have thought that for like the last 4 or 5 years, and that's why I want the Cubs to keep this guy and to extend him and let him be part of like the next great team. And I just feel like you see it from professional athletes. Like you see the ones who genuinely really care, and then you see the ones who like. You definitely get the feeling that they're just there to get paid and like, do their job. And that's like, he's just one.
That's why I was kind of mad back in like 2018 when he came out and said in the offseason, like, I am the best catcher in the National League. And he took all this flack, and I think Yadier tweeted at him and like, there's kind of some like beef. And it's like, and Cubs fans and Cubs media didn't like support Contreras. They didn't like, So yeah, he's our guy. He is better. Like he hits better. He throws out more guys. He didn't feel that support, I don't think, from us as Cubs fans. And I mean, I should look back on Cubs Twitter during that time. Did we show the support? Because he is a better catcher than Yair Molina. Maybe not at pitch framing, but all the other intangibles, he has learned and grown so much.
For sure. Like, I mean, if you want to break it down, like all the things that Yadier Molina does, he's become a better hitter as his career has progressed. And he's always been a great defensive catcher. He throws out runners all the time. Literally, the baseball writers, these old white dudes who've been watching baseball for like 30 years or whatever, are going to put him in the Hall of Fame just because of longevity. That is quite literally, that's it. I mean, and the only reason that he's played this long is because he wants to, and because the Cardinals continuously continue to give him a contract because he brings in tickets, or he brings in ticket sales. Like, because Cardinal fans love him. I don't blame him for loving him. Like I said, because everything I just said about why I love Contreras, exactly why Cardinal fans love Yadier Molina. So it's like, I think I've made my point on that. I'm just saying that I would be very disappointed if this Yan Gomes signing is because of, because we're going to trade Contreras. So that's,
this is all that they signed him for 2 years. It is interesting that it's a 2-year signing, and Mitch brought up the trade deadline. I think, regardless, it is Willie's last year of arbitration, so it does
right. Like, we got to extend him, right?
But I do think so. I got curious, and I looked at Fangraphs WAR for Willie and Yadi in their first 6 seasons, and it's about even. I think Yadi beats him out by like 0.2 or something. And keep in mind that Contreras had the 2020 season, the shortened season, in there too. But interestingly enough, you talk about WRC plus, especially for catchers. So if you can get a catcher who's like at 100, you're doing well. Because catchers, that's usually going to falter. That's usually going to be below 100. Wilson Contreras in his 6 seasons, 126, 122, 101, 126, 108, 109. I mean, I'm saying, like, this is a year that the Cubs start to adapt Wilson to other positions on the field. Like, if you want to put him in left field, fine. He has that experience. He started as a third baseman. You're obviously not going to play him there after he hasn't played there in however many years, but he's got infield experience, and you see catchers play first base all the time. I mean,
Craig Biggio, put him at second. We have enough of those.
I mean, whatever it takes. Like I'm saying, and he's such a gamer, as you just got finished saying, Cody. Like, he's such a gamer that he'll take on whatever. And Mitch, I think it's interesting too that you talk about Cubs fans' lack of support when our players need it. I was talking about that all year about Chris Bryant. Like, I was talking about that all season. Like, we didn't give Chris Bryant the support when the trade rumors first started. We're so
back 5 years ago.
Yeah,
we did it all the time this year.
It's we're so quick to just be like, okay, well, I guess we're so defeatist. Like, no. Stick up for our guys. Like, if you want this guy on the team, I'm not saying it's going to make a difference, but the public appearance matters, man. Like, these players, it's like they may say that they don't read Twitter, but it's out there, and their agents are for sure on Twitter. Like, we got to support our guys, and I remember Wilson saying that he's the best catcher in the NL, and I wasn't active on Cubs Twitter at that point, but like I'm pretty sure like I was game for that. That was the kind of electricity that I want to see from my players, for exactly like you mentioned, Cody. Like, Cardinals fans love that out of Yadi. Like, we should support the same thing out of Wilson, out of our backstop. Like, I just I will bang that drum all day long. Like, support your players because they do hear it.
Yeah. When he did that, I was active on Cubs Twitter a little bit, not like I am now, but like I liked it just because like I think when players do that, like that's just their confidence, like them showing their confidence in themselves and their skills and like how hard they worked to get where they were. And remember Wilson Contreras, like you said, wasn't even brought up as a catcher, spent like forever in the minors and became one of the Cubs' top prospects. And was part of our World Series winning team and all that good shit, and then has been our starting catcher for the last 6 years, So like what he's been able to do for his career is something that cannot go unnoticed in terms of just being a successful major league player. But also at the time, I think he tweeted that in like 2018. He definitely was at the time one of the top catchers in baseball. And Yadier Molina posted that thing on Instagram. It was like a picture of him, Buster Posey, and like I think it was JT Realmuto, maybe, or maybe not JT Realmuto because at the time he hadn't played very long yet, but like another catcher that had been in the league for a long time. And it's just like, I don't know. It was so dumb. I thought it was just super petty from Yachty. And then like Wilson, he took so much flack that he went back on Twitter and like basically apologized for saying that he was the best. And I was like, no, don't apologize for being confident. Like it kind of reminds me of what do you call it? It kind of reminds me of Derrick Rose whenever he was coming back from his injuries. I know that's shifting to basketball, but he I think it was like the year he was coming back from the ACL injury. He did some interview and he said that he is the best player in basketball or whatever. And a lot of people like after he got hurt again and again after that, people kept going back to that and being like, well, that was a bad take. It was like, dude, the guy's just trying to show that he's confident in his game. Yep. You know what I mean? So yeah, that I'm with you guys. I'm with you, Jake, on like, yeah, we should show more support and all that stuff. Especially with Chris Bryant. I know me and you think very along those same lines for Chris Bryant, and he deserves nothing but nothing but happiness, and he deserves whatever he wants, honestly, because he took so much slander in the city. And another thing with Derrick Rose is one of my favorite athletes in Chicago sports history, so I keep going back to him. But I feel like when Derrick Rose left the Bulls and left Chicago, like I feel like the Chicago media kicked him out as well, because of all of the slander, because he couldn't stay on the court and all this, that, and how much money he was making. And I just feel like the same thing with Chris Bryant.
And look at him
except
now.
He wasn't making any money. You know what I mean? Like it was just because he perhaps maybe peaked in 16 and 17 and then injuries came through and he, Scott Boras being his agent just happened to be a reason people would go at, a reason to dig at him and all these things. And it's just disappointing. And I still will say if the Cubs can't bring him back, they will regret it. We will sit here in like 5 years. You invite me back on this podcast and we'll look back on Cubs history 5 years ago or whatever, if you want. And I'm sure Chris Bryant will still be playing really good baseball, or at least be one of the top players in the league, or looked at as one of the top players in the league still. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about all these a few times of him beating us too. So that's why I'm just like, I know he's not really in the rumors with the Cubs right now, but I would love if they found a way. Like, it's just so annoying that the Cubs let what the trade deadline came to happen. Like that's the thing that pisses me off the most, is like, you had all this time to try to re-sign or extend those guys, and then they just
add the right complementary pieces. Like somebody today was talking about how the Gomes and Frazier deals were the signings that should have been happening in the offseason when we had the players that we did.
Yep.
We should have been adding the contact bats. Like I think maybe this was Bleacher Nation. Someone was talking about there's a reason that our lineup was so successful when we had Zobrist and Fowler, because it was a different look than the rest of the power bats. Like, what did we miss? Like retooling and adding more guys like that. I'm sure if I went back and looked at the free agents, I'm sure there were guys out there that we could have added. I'm still salty we didn't add Harper, for what it's worth. I mean, I've loved Bryce Harper since he came up, but obviously he's not a complimentary piece. But yeah, I'm with you, Cody. I think the parallel between Rose and Bryant is really interesting. And I definitely see it the way that you lay it out there. And I think, Cubs fans are going to take, I think they've already been taking him for granted. We wanted this savior of the franchise. He was everything we asked for, right? Like he did everything we asked him
literally.
to do. and
Quite
then
literally.
say, all right, well, we're done with you. All right, he's gone. Like the trade rumors coming in 2017. It's like, all right, get him out of here. Like what
the whole
hell?
thing about the trade rumors, the injuries, people called him soft. The guy in 2018 when he had the shoulder injury, he literally changed his swing so he could come back and play. If that's soft, I don't know what grit is then. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what toughness is if that's soft. Like,
yeah,
I could sit here for hours and hours and go off about like Cubs fans who just don't realize just how valuable that guy was.
Yeah.
But they're the same ones who thought Javi Baez was God.
I know. Yeah.
It comes down to Chicago sports media. That's the narrative that they wanted to push at that time. And it got the fans to turn against Bryant. I remember even like my mom, like, oh, they should trade. I'm like, Mom, like, you don't know. Like, I know you're a diehard Cubs fan, but like, no, you do not want to see Bryant playing on another team. Like, he's going to come back and haunt us. Like, it's going to be Greg Maddux all over again. Like, no, like, don't say that. Like, don't listen to so-and-so on the Chicago sports media. Like, turn the TV off, change the channel, turn off the radio.
I feel like Chicago sports media is just like, it's like the second tier of like the New York media. They just got to find something to talk about. So they'll just find any person, if they're not playing well, or if they're going through a tough stretch, or if they're not performing to what their contract is or whatever, you're done for. Like, you're absolutely done for. And it's just, I get it. They gotta get their clicks, man. They gotta get their clicks. We gotta get our clicks. We're hoping people are gonna listen to this podcast, right? So like, I get it, but it's also like, I don't know, like you're not helping anything. You're not none of the media, fans on Twitter going off bitching about Bryant going 0 for 4 on a random fucking Tuesday night and fucking wherever and saying he's the worst player ever. Like, these are types of tweets that I've seen and just blew my mind.
In Miami, Bryant goes 0 for 4. Oh, he's terrible.
Yeah.
He's terrible.
I'm looking at time though. I do want to because we did do. I know Mitch, you did some research on this. I want to ask. We could talk about Bryant. I know we could lament about Bryant for for the rest of the year here, but I am curious, Mitch. If you had to, of the war list that we put together, if you had to choose 3 guys if you could only choose 3 guys from that list, who would your 3 choices be for the Cubs to pursue in free agency here?
All right. So from the very beginning, I've said that we need to get 2 pitchers. We need to get 2 position players. And one of those position players needs to be a left-handed power bat. So looking at what we've already done so far, we got Miley. That's one starting pitcher. The other one I would do is Stroman. I think we need a guy that's electric. We need a guy that the fans would love, would eat Stroman up. Like, oh man, like I get like,
we would go to war for Marcus Stroman.
Oh yeah, I just got like chills just thinking like, oh, Stroman on the mound, like he's gonna pump me up. Like, so there's our 2 pitchers. For position players, like, people aren't talking about, I think, going back to the well of getting Schwarber, like potential to move to DH when that comes available, like can play first base, and then Schwindel can DH. Like, I think that's a great option. I think whatever he did with the Nationals with their hitting coach to kind of like tweak his swing a little bit, like you saw what happened in just him being able to like leave Chicago for a little bit, figure himself out. I mean, everybody's kind of on their course of like kind of finding their identity. I think he found it away from Chicago. Now, okay, we'll bring you back since you found your identity, and now he can rake with us in Wrigley.
It's a great idea, because if you did sign him and say they don't bring any like of the former Cubs, any other former Cubs back, then he could like be the guy, you know?
Yeah.
And he would be beloved. And he was another guy that I felt like got slandered a lot, but he was kind of a streaky player for sure. And I mean, 2017 wasn't very good, but still hit 30 bombs, whatever. I guess your prototypical Adam Dunn. But and then 2018, a lot better, really good second half 2019, bad 2020. That's what led to the non-tender, which is dumb because there's only 60 games. But whatever, you guys know. So
my other guy would be, I think, Freddie Galvis. Galvis plays well into being the fill-in shortstop until our young guys that are there can can take over. He does have a 1.6 WAR. Like I think he would be serviceable. You've seen other teams that have serviceable shortstops make the playoffs. And I think with what we have coming in the next 2 or 3 years, you sign him to a 3-year team-friendly deal. I think that would benefit us. If we couldn't get Stroman, then Rodon, I feel like we can take a chance on just because he's the next best starting pitcher. Maybe Alex Wood. I don't know, but it kind of drops off the table. But like Stroman, like that's I
kind of like Michael Pineda, like as a guy that they could potentially flip.
Yep.
He's not someone that I really want long term.
He had a good season.
I also like I and that's how I kind of feel like about Wade Miley too. But we're talking about the young shortstops in the farm, but there's also some young pitching coming up. I mentioned DJ Hertz earlier, but he's just like literally 19 years old. So it's gonna be a couple more years. So we gotta get some bridge guys, right? And Stroman, I'm with you. Stroman has to be the guy, like the starting pitcher, because like, and I don't even know why he wouldn't want to come to the Cubs. He would be the number one starter. He'd start opening day. He would be beloved by this city. And I actually wrote an article about Schwarber. Like, I think it was during like the postseason. Actually, it was like right after he had that huge game with the Red Sox against, I think it was the Yankees, it was the Yankees, because him and Rizzo both hit a homer in that game or whatever. So I was out fishing for clicks or whatever, if you know what I mean. But I also was like, trying to place the idea of bringing Schwarber back, and I mean, you kind of hit on the nail, Mitch. Like, he's playing first base for the Red Sox.
Yep.
Like, if people he's another one. Like, people are like, this guy is a DH and that's it. It's like he got better as a defensive outfielder.
He got a lot better in that field.
A lot better.
Sitting in the bleachers and watching him, I was like, he looked better.
He's never gonna be like elite. He's not gonna be like all you need in left field is just someone serviceable. You can't say that about. You can't say that about Eloy Jimenez. You can't say that. So, and especially if they get the DH, which they better. Like, that should be
gonna happen. I mean, I feel like there's no way it's not, right?
But even when you look at the Cubs minor league system, the next power bat that comes from the left side is Owen Casey, and that's like 3 or 4 years away. And it's like you need somebody from the left side that has power. Somebody, and it's like we're so right-handed heavy, like we need somebody. I know Jake has talked a lot about this, and he even threw this question out to me of what can the ownership do outside of free agency to add to this team to make it better. And he brought up, I know he brought this up in the middle of the season of trading for Glass now. Is there anything like that you think, Cody, that the Cubs could do? Maybe not that, but is there anything they could do?
I mean, it's kind of late now, or it's not kind of, it is late now. I was kind of hoping that maybe Noah Syndergaard was going to be on their radar, but then he got paid $21 million. I don't think the Cubs are going to pay a guy who pitched like 2 innings in 2 years, $21 million. I don't think anyone thought he was going to get that kind of money, but the Angels are literally going off potential and hoping it hits because yikes, I don't know. It's the Angels. So
they're trying anything to get Trout in the playoffs.
Yeah, right.
Which they should. I'm glad they are.
Right. Now, Glass now is interesting though, because he has 2 more years of control, but he's not going to play next year because of Tommy John, right? So you're basically getting 1 year, and you're hoping the 1 year he comes back, he's decent. I guess that's a good idea, because say he comes back and shows flashes but isn't like elite or anything like we saw in the World Series last year, then you're kind of like, well, we can offer you a 2 or 3 year short-term deal and prove it, like we'll throw an opt-out on there, I guess, and prove that you're back or whatever, and then maybe they'll do something. So I think you could get more than 1 year out of them if they were to make a move like that. I guess off the top of my head, there isn't any other pitchers or anything like that kind of ring that. I feel like Rodon is kind of like that, because he was so good at the beginning of last season, but like clearly the innings he should have had an innings limit, because he's had injuries in the past, and like last year he finally was healthy, and then the White Sox just rode him because they caught lightning in a bottle with him. And
Man,
So I don't know
game,
if they ruined him again or not.
In the playoff game he pitched, man, he laid it all out there. He was
the one inning,
he was like 98, like he was humming it. But,
yeah.
Jake, what about you? You're the guy that loves getting like just digging deep into all this. Is there anybody that you're like, this is a trade or this is a guy? You have anybody?
I haven't looked. So my angle on this was kind of, this question was kind of like, is there anything outside of baseball oriented moves that that the front office that the ownership could do to reclaim some goodwill? So I didn't really think about like specific baseball moves. Obviously, yeah, you mentioned the Glasnow move.
Bring Sammy back. That'll get.
There we go.
It. I mean, it really is. I like, honestly, that is it. I mean, if you bring back, like, if you have like I don't know, like a day where you bring back guys from like the 03 team, like you've got Sammy, you've got Wood, you've got, I mean, Pryor obviously is the Dodgers pitching coach, so it would have to be a day that maybe we play the Dodgers, but like,
didn't they try to do that in September and bring Giovanni Soto and Ramos Rodriguez, and nobody was there in the stands?
But that mic'd up was awesome. Like that mic'd up between those two guys was super fun to watch. And yeah, I don't know, like just bringing guys like that back. Another thing too, like one thing that drove me nuts this past year, and it's always been this way, the White Sox giveaways or promo days are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? What are we doing here? Why
they're giving away signed jerseys and everything right now because of the holiday?
They had a run of T-shirts. They did like 13 T-shirts or something like that. I think it was last season with Chicago artists, and it was like there was like 2 a month maybe, and they were like different themes based on like holidays or like heritage months or whatever it was, and they were sick. It's like that's not asking that much. Like you're a franchise. Like I'm not asking you to sign a $300 million shortstop. Like I'm asking you to do the little things to show that you care about the fan experience.
Yeah.
And you're invested in this baseball team.
Yeah, like, obviously tickets need to be significantly cheaper next year too, if we ain't going to do anything major.
They should be. And I think the other thing too, like, I mean, I don't have Marquee. I can't get Marquee in Wisconsin. I have no idea what's airing on there. But like, bring back.
You can't get Marquee in Wisconsin?
Maybe you can. I don't have cable. I'm the typical millennial. But
I don't have cable either. But my girlfriend's parents gave us their login for their DirecTV, so that's how we get Marquee.
That's what's up. So like, what's the? I mean, are there is the programming decent? Because like, I think it'd be cool to have like, I don't know, like Michael Bowling has a show now. I mean, Michael Bowling just got a show. Like that's awesome. Like I need more stuff like that. Like put Michael Cerami on a show. Like get these Cubs personalities that people know from Twitter who like know what they're talking about, and like throw them in there with like a former player. It doesn't have to be like a Derek Lee level player, right? It could be like I don't know, like Ryan Sweeney hosting the post game, right? Like get someone like that, but. I think
it's kind of like what they did on NBC Sports Chicago when they're still over there and they had the Bleacher Nation guys do like the post games. I that would be I used Marquee live before I moved to my new place in July, and like I thought that in 2020 when it first started it was not great, and everyone would agree with me there, but they did implement some new things and they're moving along, and they stopped wearing suits, thank fucking God. And I
love Boog too. I really do love Boog. I think I like Boog. The last thing that I'll say is stick to a booth. Pick a booth and stick to it.
Yes.
Like I don't care if it's a 3-man booth, just make it the same 3 guys, because I think Boog and JD are good when they have a stretch of games that they're doing together. I like Sutcliffe a lot too. Like I really like Sut. So it's tough. Like I don't know who I'd pick as the 3rd guy. Dempster's
it'd be either him or Dempster for me.
What drove me nuts was that they threw Meadows, which she was all right, but right after the trade deadline, when the Cubs needed fans needed to hear a familiar voice, Meadows we're like, who is this?
I tweeted
lady talking about
I was like, Sahadev, where is Boog? Like, we need him right now. Like, I need
he's just
his
like
voice,
vanished.
I need his reassurance. And Saadav actually quote tweeted me. He was like, "I've been getting this a lot. Rest assured, Boog is fine." It's like, was this like a predetermined vacation? Like, what? We lose our guys. We've lost Len.
And then we get an outsider trying to like.
Boog?
Yeah. And don't put like, what's his name, Chris Myers on there. When Chris Myers would do it.
No.
It was the equivalent of Mark Grace, except he was play-by-play.
My other thing with Marquee is we have to listen to this or watch the same 4 commercials every single.
And that would always include like the guaranteed rate Lucas Giolito commercial. And it's like, this is supposed to be the Cubs network, motherfuckers. Like, what are we doing? We're not promoting a White Sox player on here. I'm not even like a White Sox hater. I would every time I'd see it, I would just laugh a little bit because like, this is exactly what the Cubs are right now. We're promoting our crosstown rival, best pitcher on our own network that I'm paying way too much money for, which I really was at one point paying way too much money for because like my cable package went up like $30 because to get Marquee. And it's just like, it was very, the way that it came out and everything was very bad. And that's why Tom Ricketts is going to get trolled forever about the Cubs convention and him talking about Marquee. So Jake, you make a lot of good points there with like, ownership or earning some trust back or just any kind of good faith because he needs it. Tom needs it in a big way. I go back and forth with the guy because it's like if he's not the owner, I don't know if we ever won the World Series, man. But I'm also like, this guy, he let Crane Kinney spend all his damn money, and now we got a freaking hotel across the street from Wrigley Field that costs $400 a night that no one's going to use. And we got.
I'm not. It's out of my price range.
And we got.
I'll sleep on my buddy's futon.
Right. I live 2 miles away. I'm not going to stay in that.
I'll buy a case of beer and sleep on his futon. There we go. It's my $30 a night motel.
Right. Like, it's already expensive enough to just have any fun in Wrigleyville. The fact that the Cubs tickets were the most expensive in baseball, and then they ship all these guys out, and how we haven't like shown at least been in rumors for any of these marquee free agents. It's just it feels like a slap in the face from ownership. I don't even want to put it on Jed. I feel like it's ownership. So like it
definitely
like
is
that's
ownership.
that's my like that's why I keep saying like I'm with people. I just like I can't go on Twitter or Cubs Twitter every single day and find a reason to bitch about. It's like people are waking up and they're just thinking about Tom Ricketts. It's like Tom Ricketts is living rent free in your head, people. Like
I think I have to lock Twitter on my phone tomorrow. I told Mitch I spent way too much time on it today.
No, it's Twitter.
I'll promo this episode and then I'll lock myself out.
I have a lot of friends who aren't active on Twitter, and they know that I am, and they continuously or are always asking me like, why are you on this app so much? And it's just like, if you love sports like I do, like Twitter is where you live. Like it just is. And it's a great place for that, but then you just run into some of the biggest morons on the planet. Some guy tweeted today that he missed Jim Henry, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me, brother? Are you kidding me?"
Okay, that's the perfect lead-in for this. And Mitch, I am looking at time, so I'll throw it back to you after this. But
sorry if we're going way too long, guys.
It's great. It's great talk, man.
I gotta say, so
I needed this.
I tweeted today. Hang on. I gotta read this verbatim here.
This was great. I think
it's probably, I said, people are overlooking the fact that Jan Gomes is actually Stroh's personal catcher. Stroman to the Cubs, book it. And people are like replying and quote tweeting like it's true. And it's like, you can say anything, man. Like they've never played together. They've never been the same team. And then like, because I didn't think people were getting the joke, Bleacher Nation in the announcement of the Gomes signing, they use a picture of Gomes and Chafin. So I was like, oh, it turns out he's also Andrew Chafin's personal catcher. It's perfect. We'll bring Chafin back too. Like, just to double down on the joke, so people but people didn't get it. People didn't.
It's always the best when people don't see the joke.
Yeah,
like that's literally my Twitter account. I feel like is me just dead humor, like making a joke about literally everything. For the most part, that's what I feel like, and unless I'm talking about my gambling problem. But other than that, though, most of my tweets are very non-serious and always just making fun of Cubs Twitter because it's something that like you just can't explain. You can't put into words. You're just like, there's just so many crazy people. And I'm just like, I wonder what you're like in real life. Like, what are you like if you're at a game at Wrigley Field? Are you yelling at Tom Ricketts from the bleachers as you drink your $12 beer that you gave him?
Follows me. Yeah. I tweeted 2 days ago. I said after the Mariners started making their moves, I said, I'm one Mariners Chris Bryant signing away from becoming an M's fan. And this guy I think he follows me. He responded like, if that's true, you were never real. Or he said, then that means you were never really a Cubs fan. I was like, dude, I shouldn't have to qualify this tweet. Like, I'm on a Cubs podcast, man. Like, look at my wall. Like, I got this Cubs crap. I'm in this, man. This isn't even 10% of the stuff that I own.
That's hilarious. Good stuff, fellas. Good stuff.
All right. Well, man, Cody, it was awesome having you on. We'll have to do it again very soon because it's great to listen to you talk all day and just your passion for the Cubs. Like you can feel it when we listen to Cubs on Tap. Like I can feel your passion. So that we need more of that. I think Cubs fandom.
My most passionate like podcast I've ever done for Cubs on Tap. If anyone wants to hear like my passion, it's probably the episode as soon, like literally we did it an hour after the Cubs traded Anthony Rizzo. That was probably my most passionate that I ever was on a podcast. I like shed a few tears on that podcast. So I would say if you want to hear a really good passion from me, that's not just me screaming into a mic because I'm pissed off at a lot of morons on Twitter or because some Cubs reliever gave up 3 runs in the 8th inning because we can't score runs and all that.
McGill is gone. Don't worry.
Gone. If you want some like real like deep into your soul passion of how I feel about the Cubs, go listen to that one because that one, like, I told Ron when we did it, I was like, we're gonna remember this one for a long time. And anytime me and him were talking about Anthony Rizzo, we've kind of like brought up like, remember when we did that podcast? So we're still talking about it. So if that's one episode that for someone to listen to in the off season, I feel like that's a good one to go listen to.
I know how I'm starting my Wednesday morning.
There you go. Where can they find you on Twitter?
You follow me on Twitter at CodyOnTap. It's very on brand for the OnTap Sports Network. So I'm always tweeting about the Cubs. Obviously, if you're an Illinois basketball fan, I'm always tweeting about them, and then I'm always giving out gambling picks because I am a true degenerate. And the best thing that the state of Illinois has ever done is making sports betting legal. Is the only thing good that the state of Illinois has ever done good. You guys live in Iowa and Wisconsin. Congratulations, you don't live here, but I do live in the great city of Chicago, so it's fun. So we'll have to catch a game when you guys come next year. I don't know how many games a year you guys go to, but I went to like 20 last year because I live 2 miles from Wrigley Field, and it's awesome. That's one of the perks of living here. So, unfortunately, I saw a lot of losses.
I know we as a group are going to try to make it easy on Jake and go to a Cubs Brewers game in Milwaukee this next year. So,
I've been to Miller Park.
Miller Park's great.
It's a good one. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. That does it for this episode of the Dingers Podcast.